All right, we're live
We're live.
with Jaya today. Welcome to everybody who is watching. We are currently live on LinkedIn and YouTube. My name's Aaron Rash. I'm the founder of Shift Reality. We help founders in emerging tech put outreach on autopilot so they can spend less time reaching out to prospective clients, more time closing business, and creating and doing what they do best as innovators. Joined today by Jaya. Jaya, how do you pronounce your last name?
Bhagavathula.
Bhagavathula. Thank you. I just didn't want to botch it. Jaya is the current head of product at Curastory. They're a programmatic influencer marketing platform. Prior to that, he was a founding member of Reddit Ads product management team. And he's got a lot of really great experience building out digital ad products that I'll let him speak to, and also a lot of just really interesting insight into kind of the future of advertising, which is today's topic. So Jaya, thank you for joining me today. I'll let you give a brief introduction, and then we'll dive into your background a little bit and kind of how you got started in this space.
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. Good to be here. My name is Jaya Bhagavathula, and I have been working in digital media, mostly streaming and advertising for a while, for over a decade. And it's such an exciting space, green space, and I love what I do. And I've been an engineer. I've been in partnerships. Then I switched to product management. So I've been through different roles within this space, and at heart, I'm a technologist. So yeah, here I am.
Gotcha. So you're in partnerships before you started at Reddit?
No, I have done partnerships with third-party integrations, like integration technology providers. I work with them a lot, from evaluating whether they are a good fit to meet our needs, to solve customer problems, all the way down to like understanding their tech, integrating their tech with ours, so their technology is baked into our platforms as part of our offering. Because primarily I built ad tech.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Could you speak a little bit about like kind of the history of ads at Reddit? Kind of how that got started, and kind of what the reasoning was behind starting it when it was started? Because I think it was an interesting time for the ad tech space in general.
Yeah, Reddit has been around for a long time. They're the front page of the internet, right? So I joined Reddit in 2017, and by then Reddit is already a decade-old company with over 300 million users. And when they reached out to me, my expectation is a large company, a known brand with a ton of people, a mature technology. So awesome, lot of resources. So I decided to go and work with them. But to my surprise, the ads team is pretty small. So Reddit has been organically growing for 10 years without much investment in product or technology. So it's primarily building the consumer side. On the business and revenue side, there's never been a strong push. And most of the advertising was done via third-party providers, like we partnered with Google, and just running small programmatic ads here and there on mobile web. That's primarily how Reddit ads was done. And when I joined, I would say the revenue was still like in 40 million yearly for a company that's decade old, for a company that's big. But all I know is when I joined, the team is pretty small. We were, I would say, product and eng just around 10 people at Reddit, and the whole company is around 220 people almost when I joined Reddit. But we had big ambitions. We want to go public. We want to make hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, primarily driven by ad tech. And I was one of the early product folks who joined the team. And it was a fun green space with not a lot figured out. uh, and we didn't even have our own native ad tech built. We just built a UI that works with third-party ad serving
Hmm.
platform at that time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so different. This is just like a small startup, early startup within a large company. But I would say it's been a wild journey since then. I've got it for me. Um,
I have to imagine that, because at that point, Facebook ads was pretty far along, and Twitter had their thing, and
yes,
I'm curious, like how much of that influenced the decisions that were made, versus like how much were you trying to kind of innovate in isolation and do new creative things?
sure. Um, that's actually one of a big challenge we had. A lot of brands who are coming in to work with Reddit, the first thing they see is there's hundreds of millions of users, 300, 400 million users. And the first thing is, yes, this is a massive opportunity to reach new audience. But at the same time, um, our competitors are literally other social platforms like Facebook, Snapchat, Pinterest, and everyone who are way far ahead in terms of technology maturity for ad tech. But the
Hmm.
expectations from outside world brands is the same. They expected Reddit's tech to be at the same level of maturity as them. But they had like years of lead time building so much optimization, so many things. So our playbook initially was definitely to build some of the known features. So
Hmm.
to get to some level of feature parity with everyone, but at the same time, in my opinion, no platform is the same. Every platform
Hmm.
has their own unique features. Every platform is unique in terms of what data they have, what can they do with their audience, right? So in that context, Reddit was unique. We cannot just replicate what everyone just did and build it at Reddit. Um, so we built some features to reach feature parity, but at the same time, a lot of our value-added features are really banking on where Reddit is really strong, what
Hmm.
Reddit is really all about,
Hmm.
right? So that's how we built it. Like to be honest, I would say Reddit is a very unique platform compared to
Hmm.
others, mostly because every user is anonymous. When you're
Hmm.
anonymous, you'll be more honest with each other. You will,
Hmm.
your feedback, your point of view, anything you say is a lot more honest. So, to me, that drove a lot of genuine conversations on Reddit. And a Reddit user base is also very highly engaging. They
Hmm.
can just take anything and just discuss, right? And
Hmm.
at the same time, all the communities we have on Reddit are pretty strong, really popular. So that made Reddit like a really untapped world for a lot of these advertisers and brands that we work with to really extract that value. Given how engaging the user base is, that's what everyone wants. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess for those of you who are watching that might not be like avid Reddit users, I'm really not a very avid Reddit user. I would say I'm like casual.
mhm,
I explore subreddits as needed to find what I'm looking for. But there's of course the front page, right, which is like everything that's hot,
mhm,
um, and that's like the most expensive real estate when it comes to
yes.
advertising, right?
Mhm,
And then there are all of these subreddits that are devoted to specific topics.
yes.
And please correct me if I'm getting this wrong.
That's correct. Mhm,
Okay. And within these subreddits, you have these. It really does feel like more communal to me
mhm,
than a lot of other social media platforms because you have the regulars, you have like the admins, the moderators, right? Who are just making sure that like the content that gets posted adheres to community guidelines and
yes.
is relevant to the subreddit. Um, and then you have those redditors, right, the loyal users that are kind of like the foundation of each of those subreddits.
Mhm,
And then you have the lurkers, like kind of like myself, who just kind of pass through to get what they're looking for, and maybe comment here and there, but aren't anywhere near as engaged as the redditors.
mhm,
And I think that's what makes Reddit like really unique to me. Coming from other social media platforms, that are, I'd say it's more like passive engagement, versus like Reddit feels very active to me.
It totally is, and
Yeah.
um, that's why, like, when you go on Reddit, when you get an advice, it's actually pretty accurate. I personally follow personal finance on Reddit a lot, and a lot of that advice is so professional. And we don't know who is given it because users are anonymous. But at the same time, everybody come together. And one of the things you mentioned is moderators, which is where Reddit works really well. It's all self-moderated. So
Hmm.
people who are moderating the community and everything genuinely cares about that community, unlike other platforms where it's it's a paid for workforce that actually looks through and does what they are asked to do, right? So Reddit is such a genuine Wild West place where really strong, interactions, conversations, and engagements happen. So I loved it. It's a challenge to build ad tech for a platform like that,
Hmm.
but at the same time, it was such a rewarding experience.
Yeah, actually, could you speak a little bit more to some of the challenges that arose? I'm curious, because it is like such a, wild place, and it is very community led and community driven. What kind
Sure,
of challenges that pose to you and on the ads team?
sure. If you take digital advertising, right? Um, the reason Facebook or any other platforms, any platform that requires user to log in, they're also successful is they know who the user is and they
Hmm.
know what they are looking for. They can get so much information as long as you know who the person is. The first challenge I faced is I cannot just build the same ad tech at Reddit because we don't know who the user is. The users are very much decoupled. It's very much like anonymous, which is great because we respect privacy. It's built in all of our platforms, all our products. It's a privacy first approach. So replicating high performing advertising products without compromising privacy was a huge challenge because we had to revisit every single thing
Hmm.
because we don't have the luxury. Like, sure, we have so many users, but we just don't have the same data. Um, at the same time, the way we solved that is we realized I always say context is king. Contextual signals actually work better than individual data points to me.
Hmm.
So just using contextual data at Reddit, like what subreddits and keywords, etc., actually perform so much better, and that played along with the strengths of Reddit itself. So that way, we were able to solve some of the targeting challenges. But data was a huge issue, and the second thing I touched previously before is the expectation of brands, what level of performance they expect. And they
Hmm.
compare side by side with brands like companies like Facebook and Pinterest. And they're like, oh, we run the same campaign, here is the performance. And of course, um, at earlier, when we were just starting to build platforms, like we don't have those many features. We have
Hmm.
no machine learning models that are constantly optimizing things that came in later. So that was also a huge challenge initially, and also perception. At that time, brands are slowly started to come in, but they also are scared. Like beginning of advertising journey, they're like, oh my god, Reddit users are they're like, oh, so many communities. They don't know if it's going to work or doesn't work.
Hmm.
If it works, it's going to be so great that it's like the best ever. If it doesn't work, they have a lot of hard time. But perception is also something that we had to work. And luckily, the team at Reddit was amazing. They took whether it's a policy change, whether it's so many things that they implemented to slowly change that perception. And as brands started to work with us and get to know our user base, get to see the performance, they all fell in love. So that's how like things would change. But it was a
Interesting.
huge. Some of these are pretty much like a huge challenge for us in the beginning.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think anonymity is a big one for sure. not having that, granularity of data. But I think the good thing is like you do have the subreddits, and you do have all of that contextual information because people are so interactive within the subreddits.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see the value in that. And I'm curious kind of how that translates into like targeting, within like the ad tech system on the business side of things. Like I personally haven't used Reddit ads. I'm
Mhm.
definitely interested in using Reddit ads, especially after talking to you.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'd love to know kind of like when you are targeting, like what kinds of things are you looking at? Keywords obviously, but you also have subreddits, kind of like Facebook has groups, but
Yes. Mhm.
subreddits are a lot more interactive, I
Yes.
feel.
So I would say subreddit targeting was pretty big from the beginning, and brands can find subreddits that are similar to what the brand stands for. If they are in tech, they can find tech and many different subreddits. And we do show it's not just one, but they can also select similar subreddits that they can select. So that way they can expand they can broaden their. So finding similar subreddits to what you select is also a huge one. And later on, I think there are like other features that were built as well, like um, to be able to upload your own user base, like that you have, and see if you can find like similar users. So a lot of that was built in. On top of it, yes, we have um, some of the standard targeting that we try to offer as well. Not necessarily at the same level of others, but it was basic. But I would say subreddits and keywords were pretty highly used ones at Reddit. Um, they
It's
perform well.
interesting because I actually talked with a friend of mine about like targeting within Discord, in the context of
Mhm, mhm,
Web3 and all of these like
mhm,
NFT communities that have popped up. Um, and we were talking about how to structure. I'm actually part of this NFT community called Car Collective. It's voxel style automotive artwork. That's actually really cool, and the founders come from like the automotive world, and the artwork's amazing. I'll pull up a link in a second, but
mhm.
we were trying to figure out how to structure the Discord, uh, and trying to figure out how can we get people, because there's a lot of subcultures within like the automotive world. I don't know if you're like an auto enthusiast, but there's tuners, there's people who like NASCAR, there's people who like Formula One.
Mhm.
And then even within that, have like specific makes and models have like their cult followings. Like my family is really big into Hondas.
Oh,
Um,
they're good
so like,
cars.
yeah, so my thoughts were like, well, we could have separate channels for like different makes and models. There are a lot of people who like the Mazda Miata. Like we could have a Mazda Miata channel and get that granular,
Mhm,
or
mhm.
we can go more high level and just do make, right? So like Honda, Toyota, Kia, Mazda, etc. Um, and it's interesting because when you think about like you're curating a community, but if you're running a business, the end goal is to be able to kind of segment your market, right, and to target
Yes.
effectively. So you need to pay close attention to how you're structuring the channels. So if you're a business, and I'm sure the same probably does transfer a little bit to like Reddits and subreddits when you're targeting.
Mhm.
um, there are a lot of like smaller subreddits out there, that may have much more engaged groups within
Yes.
them, right? And like Car Collective is a very small group, but they're very active, right? And like the percent of members in that Discord that are like on there daily is much higher than the average Discord channel, I would assume.
That is
Um,
true.
and yeah, so I mean it's interesting because like you can get granular, and it makes a difference, right? The way you structure, the way you segment, even when you're community building, right? Forget targeting, it's more just about at that level. I'm wondering, is there are you familiar with like how brands were actually like creating subreddits for their
So,
communities?
so brands do not create subreddits, right? So
Hmm.
so when they're actually coming onto the platform, one of the first thing brands will have to figure out is what is their goal? What is their marketing objective? If their objective is to spread awareness, then they need to reach the wider net. They need to cast the wider net. They need to go more general, like high-level subreddits, still in their field, but they need to cast a wider net. But if their focus is primarily to drive performance, um, kind of generate a lead or kind of drive a particular conversion, then they need to go much more niche because that will get the best bang for their buck, right? So that's what they need to figure out coming into any platform, not just Reddit, to really figure out what is their marketing objective and then kind of prepare a plan. Like, okay, now what are the targeting features available? And then look at, okay, what does this mean? And then translate, create a plan, and then go with it. So,
Yeah, I think that's an interesting differentiator between Reddit and other social platforms. Is like a lot of brands who are utilizing Facebook feel like they have to go and create a Facebook group, right, for the brand, and then drive traffic to that group and grow the community around their brand. Versus Reddit kind of flips it on its head, right?
yeah,
It's like we're trying to figure out what community-led groups exist so that we can bring our brand to the community rather than bringing a community to the brand. I
yeah,
actually think it's a lot. You can get a lot better data that way. Um, and I actually think that it's a lot more organic the way people engage in that context.
yes,
Um, versus like you see brands try and start even like Discord servers. Like I just heard, I think Louis Vuitton launched a Discord server,
yeah,
and my thoughts are like, well, it's just going to be like a lot of like marketing materials, like subtle like promotions and things. And yeah, there's a lot of people who fanboy out over Louis Vuitton. Maybe they're doing some like exclusive product drops, but are you really building a community or are you creating a funnel? Right? You can do both.
yes,
But I feel like it oftentimes is a lot more effective to focus on the community before you and the way you structure it. And this kind of circles back to the whole Discord conversation. Like we want to do a good job curating like a sense of community.
yes,
Because from the user's perspective, it is kind of like a need for affiliation with a group, right? I need for like identifying with a subset of users on the platform that align with your interests, with your beliefs. And
oh, totally.
I think Reddit's great for that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Curastory, because and you definitely made your mark at Reddit, and then you moved on and found this new role,
Mhm.
also in product management, a platform that is also leveraging social media
Yes.
for marketing purposes. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. Like I mentioned before, I ventured into creator commerce, which is where influencer marketing and anything to do with creators fall under. Um, I pretty much worked in streaming and advertising, building tech, right? So, and within advertising, it's video, audio, display, and native advertising. So that's what I primarily focused on, every single one. To me, I love emerging trends. Um, like like one of the when I one of the company I worked at before Reddit was AdSwiss, and they were in audio advertising. It was at a point where if you say audio advertising, people think of traditional radio and broadcast advertising. No one really thinks about, oh wow, there is streaming, there's like ad insertion, all that. No, so it wasn't a sexy thing. And no brand actually makes audio advertising a primary factor as well. So when I joined, it was pretty early on. We built a lot of first to market audio centric ad serving platforms, both for supply, which is publishers, and demand side for all brands. Right? And eventually, advertising board like IAB and others built audio specific protocols and everything, and audio became a mainstream. So I've seen that journey. To me, I love emerging trends. I've always worked with a lot of 0 to 1 products when things are still bubbling up. We need to prove the product market fit. How do we do that? So I've been researching 2 areas: conversational commerce with the rise of Alexa and Google Home at that time, where you can have an interaction with a voice based agent, And then creator commerce is the second one. I really tried to do some research. And I'm also an artist where I started painting randomly out of nowhere one day. And then I decided to take it more seriously and started painting. And the first thing I noticed is okay, everybody said you need to go on Instagram and build your Instagram channel. I went there. I have no clue what to do. I'm like, okay, how do I use these hashtags? And I started learning more and more. I started following more people, and then I had a lot of vested interest in creator commerce that way. So I decided, all right, let me get in this area. It's an emerging trend. Still, there is so much to be done there, and and then I decided, all right, I'm going to find the company that I want to work with, and then went in. I started my creator commerce journey with a company called LTK. It's Like to Know It. The founder is actually a pioneer in influencer marketing. She built when influencer marketing when that was still not a term. Um,
Wow.
so I was part of their brand platform team, built some of their brand platform features. And then I also worked at a company called Hull, which is more up and coming platform. But here is my assessment with that. The tech is not scalable. It's heavily managed service. Tech is not scalable. And the same pool of creators are being shared because everybody go after the obvious ones, beauty and fashion, food,
Mm.
tech creators. There are only so many. Everybody want to work with the same.
Mm-hmm.
And also there is huge reliance on social platforms. Everybody are on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube primarily, and they're just there. So I thought, okay, I need to find, I was looking out for a company that's focused on a niche where there is growth potential and there is a way to build the technology that's scalable. So in that process, I ended up talking to Curastory, and we are we call ourselves a first only programmatic platform for influencer marketing out there because our model is self-serve to start with. So we have a self-service platform both for brands and creators. And our target creator pool is actually not beauty and fashion right now. We started with student athletes and pro athletes. So we work primarily with athletes who only recently, a couple of years ago, are allowed to start monetizing, working with brands with this whole name, image, likeness thing. So to me, it's an untapped pool of very talented creators who are so passionate about what they do, which is sports.
Mm-hmm.
And we have brands who love working with these creators. And there's just nothing out there that really streamlines the whole flow. So that's the opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what drew me towards this company. And I'm one of their first product hires. And I have now the luxury to really work with the founding team to build out a really scalable platform. And the second thing that I'm also very proud of here is the monetization method. Traditionally, any platform you take, you will see whether they pay for a post that they create or they pay a commission for a product they sell. It just quickly becomes very commercial. It's all
Mm-hmm.
money driven. Oh, the more sales I do, the more money I make on commissions is what the creator mindset will. So that's where initially you mentioned something about trust, how some of the Gen Z may not trust the influencers because it looks like they're just like shoving products on their face.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the model is. But here, this is more of a tried and tested method of monetization, similar to podcasts, where you are doing a podcast, but you're also inserting ads within the podcast stream itself. Same thing what we do. So we build a platform for creators, athletes, that they can upload content, edit the content, and post it to their all of their social channels, all via one platform.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is what we're doing at Curastory. Super excited. We have a lot more to unlock from revenue and growth standpoint, but it's exciting times for us.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, it reminds me. I have a cousin who played football in high school,
Mhm.
and he was being scouted by coaches for college scholarships and so on. He ended up not playing in college after all and just did club, but he would post his highlight reels to Huddle. You familiar with Huddle? Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of that, but Huddle didn't really have like a monetizable component to it. There was no commercial Huddle, right? It was all just portfolio management software, from what I understand. In fact, I think I was even on it at one point watching his reels. But I can imagine that, like, this is kind of like the next evolution of that, right? It's taking it, and not only are you're being scouted, you're being recruited, but this is an art, right? Athletics, make no mistake, is an art, and we're empowering artists to monetize their creative works. And you also, you spoke to your painting. It's really interesting because you're on the other side.
Yes.
And you're using the platforms, and you understand, the pains of being an artist, and how hard it can be, I feel like, to make money from your creative work.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of other artists, primarily in the Web3 space. Actually, last live I did was with a friend of mine. HD4884 is his stage name.
I see.
And he's a drum and bass artist, but he does a lot of work with Unreal Engine and 3D modeling for like visuals, like concert visuals, DJ sets. And it's same problem for him, right? It's all about building a social presence, and getting that in front of people. But when you talk about the B2B side of things, it's there's potential there as well.
Yes.
That he hasn't even begun to tap as an artist. And brands are constantly in search of creators.
Yes.
Then, like you were saying before, I mean, there is that pool of creators that is in such high demand. It's almost become like oversaturated, or they've become oversaturated, with brand promotions, and it doesn't feel authentic anymore.
No, not at all.
And I think that, I really agree with like kind of the ethos of this project. It's like you're empowering the smaller creators who have high potential for growth. And I think that when you talk about like targeting as well at like a lower level, and getting more niche and into some of these subgroups that are more engaged, it goes a long way to work with up and coming artists, rather than artists that have already made it, right? And you can actually pick, and for the same amount of money, you can actually invest in a number of smaller artists, right? And achieve much higher levels of engagement. Yeah.
I agree. Like to that one, one of the big reason why the trust factor started becoming a huge concern in influencer marketing is a lot of large brands, they have the money, they go after all these really large influencer with millions of followers. Right. So to be honest, the number of followers became a huge factor in how brands started picking influencers in a particular category. But to me, that is actually a wrong way to look at it, because if someone has millions and millions of followers, A, you can buy followers, and B, you have so many, the engagement may not be there. So to me, if a brand really want to drive any sort of awareness, sure, spread the word, maybe those are the right ones. But if someone really want to drive true engagement and find that perfect customer, because influencer marketing, unlike any others, it's not B2C, it's not B2B, it's a B2B2C model, right? So at the end, they're reaching customers through another business entity, which is a creator in this case. So finding those influencers who have small but very engaged audience, which shows that they really trust this individual, is actually a lot more beneficial for a lot of brands. And to me, like, that's where a true value is to be unlocked, in my opinion.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential, and I spent some time interfacing with Web3 founders, and engaging in like NFT communities, and working with what a lot of people would consider to be like micro influencers. And one, they're a lot easier to work with.
Yes.
they're much more affordable, but they're
Mhm.
also much more flexible,
Yes.
which I think is a huge benefit from a business perspective, right? You don't have to adapt your branding to meet their requirements as an influencer. It's the other way around. They're so much more willing to work with you.
That is so
Um,
true.
yeah, and I think that's also really valuable. Um, but at the same time, I mean, it is there has to be, respect for the craft and for the artist. And I had this conversation with HD as well. It's like, he has his style,
Mhm.
um, and he will not take work that demands that he departs from his style, right?
Yes.
It's that he's not going to
Totally.
bend at the will of money. And I feel like a lot of creators are kind of in the same mindset. Even if they are hungry, for more work, they're not going to sacrifice the integrity of their craft.
No,
Um,
because that itself is their identity, and
yeah,
if that's who they are, they want followers who really like embrace that. So I agree.
interesting. So, tell me a little about your painting. I mean, how did you start that? What was the inspiration to begin?
Um, this is not a story where I met this artist or anything like that. No, I did cartoons when I was a kid. Then I never painted a thing in my whole life till a little bit right before COVID. I love cooking. I just wanted a different way to de-stress myself. So I love colors. I thought colors are a great therapy to de-stress and kind of decompress. So
Mhm,
I literally bought paints and I started painting. And I stored all my paintings just in my house. They're hanging on my walls to a point where I have no more room.
mhm,
So, but when I moved to North Carolina, I always kept my paintings to myself, but I started discovering a pattern, a style, what I like to paint, which is more impressionist style,
mhm,
which is not real or it's too abstract. So when I moved to North Carolina from San Francisco, one of the coffee shops close to my house saw my Instagram and said, "You should put your paintings here." So I reluctantly put my paintings, and when I sold my first few paintings, people bought them and gave feedback that, great. I started taking my painting much more seriously. And I started experimenting different styles. I still experiment a lot of different styles um, and different color palettes, color combinations. So I paint mostly nature, wildlife, or daily life, like just simple things human beings do day to day, walking the dog, walking
mhm.
in rain with an umbrella. So things like that. So I just paint those. And now it became my much more, I'm becoming more serious artist than before.
I see.
That
Yeah,
was
you
my
have a
journey.
lot behind you
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
What's going on? Um,
Yeah, they're all things that I've done. I have
mhm,
not hung them anywhere yet. Either I think they need a little bit more work, or I'm still working on them. So these are
mhm,
all like work in progress. I have a lot of work in progress paintings.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean there are like a lot of parallels. It is a lot more analog, of course.
Yes.
But I think there are a lot of parallels if you talk about targeting. Like you definitely found a market for
Yes.
for what you're producing. The art you're producing, whether that was your intention, going into the coffee shop or not.
No.
Yeah, but I think similar principles apply, right?
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
I'm
Anywhere.
I'm curious to hear, with Curastory and kind of to bring it all back, like, how do you see some of the principles from, your journey as an artist applying to the work you're doing? I know that might be a tough question to answer on the spot.
Well, no, I think about it all the time, right? So being in product management, one of the things that I focus a lot on is think from my customer shoes. And in this case, my customers are threefold. I have brands, I have athletes who are the creators, and their followers, right? So I
Mm,
have to think about every one of them and step in their shoes and see how can I make their life easy. What can I do for brands? Making their life easy is basically how can I automate more and more decision making for them,
mhm,
so brands can really come in, tell us what their goals are. This is my ultimate goal. tell us what their objectives are, and say what funds they have, what they're looking for, and then we figure it out, right? So that's where you can say maybe AI-based platform down the line is
Mhm.
on the way, and constantly optimize towards giving them the best ROAS, which is return on their ad spend, right? So
Mhm.
that's what brands care about. And so, and on the creator side, same thing. Like they need a lot of help assisting with content creation,
Mhm.
helping them, making them more discoverable to brands, and and then how can they collaborate? Remove all the friction points for them to like discover, collaborate, and put content out. Right. So constantly thinking about it, and then at the same time, shoppers, our audiences that they have. So what we are doing here, helping creators, is it really unlocking the value not just for the brands but also the creators themselves, so they can also grow. So constantly think about it. So my personal journey related to this, I would say my empathy for all my customer base is a huge one for me, because every time I think from their shoes, I can relate to some experience I personally had and say,
Mhm.
okay, no, I do not want them to feel this way. So I try to reflect that in my product strategy or like features or design, everything.
Mhm. That's really noble. I feel like the more we can do to empower creators to make a living from their creative works, the better. A lot of people throw around the term creator economy, but this is what I feel to be like the underpinning of it is like,
Mhm.
how can we enable creators with new technologies,
Yeah.
um, not only to monetize their creative works, but to create.
Yes.
Um, and I think that is perhaps even more important, right? Is like how can we create the best content possible,
Yes.
um, to serve our needs and to serve the needs of the people we're creating for. Um, I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of platforms out there that are, building with the creator in mind now, and a lot of them kind of classify as like Web3 in my mind. So like one of my recent clients is, and actually going to be my next guest. He's a Grammy Award winning music producer,
Wow.
and he's been working on this virtual concert platform for like half a decade now, and just really paying close attention to not only his needs as a producer, and having been a struggling artist, the
Mhm.
trials and tribulations of
Yeah.
trying to make it, and then making it, but also the needs of other similar artists, independent musicians primarily.
Mhm.
And he's building this platform basically to streamline the concert creation process, using Unreal Engine, and it's all browser based and accessible.
Mhm.
Um, and I see actually a lot of parallels, between that and something like a Curastory. Is like
Mhm.
you are equipping, the average creator, or I wouldn't say the average creator. I would say the up and coming
Mhm.
artist or athlete, right, with tools that will enable them to achieve success,
Oh,
um,
absolutely.
in their field. And I think that's the most powerful thing we can do for creators. And then a byproduct of that is brands have this much larger pool of talent to work with, um, and it's much easier for them to interface with those creators as well. I think that's been
Mhm.
a huge part of it, is just accept access to those creators, right?
Yep.
Getting in contact with them, having like a standardized way to work with them. And I was wondering maybe if you could speak a little bit more to like how you're approaching some of those challenges.
So, so one of the thing I would say is like a it's also a trend, right? So given our political landscape and like all the social things that are going on, there are a lot of brands who are also like, how can I get, how can we reach to my future or existing audience, um, and communicate our values and do all that. So
Mhm.
to me, I'm kind of like making it a lot less serious, but it's pretty serious issue. A lot of them think about. And to me, like first, I want to just talk about like why I think influencer marketing or creator marketing is actually a great channel for a lot of brands, and I want them to put more into this. Is because of the so given all of these, the users, average customer, lost trust in every social platform, like every media, traditional media outlet, right? TVs, news,
Mm-hmm.
any other things. And so brands have saturated that space by advertising in it and doing it. So they need a voice who are aligned 100% with their values and with their voice, and then take that message, be like a brand ambassador. And
Mm-hmm.
these all these micro ambassadors is how I see these creators working with brands to really spread that message, and and kind of like build that trust and that community kind of with the brands. So to me, like that's where I can see the influencer marketing or creator marketing channel to be more successful than pouring a lot of effort, putting a lot of effort in like traditional way, because everything is fabricated by brands. So that doesn't really, once you translate it, it's all guesswork. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
translate to like how what the exact customer, what the end user want to hear. So, but
Mm-hmm.
in this way, creators know what their audience like. Creators
Mm-hmm.
know what will appeal to them. So they can take what brands really care about. If they align with those values, especially a lot of younger generation now care a lot more about value-based matching with brands than just purely, oh, you pay me this much, I'll do what you want to do, right? So that's no longer the
Mm-hmm.
case. They care a lot about values. They care a lot about like what does the brand stand for? What are you doing to resonate with the values you have? Um, so coming back to like building a platform, to me, that's important to me. How can I
Mm-hmm.
now take what the brands want? How can I take what creators want and build features, build things that will really help them find a good match? In a way, creator marketing platforms to me are a mix of a recruiting app and a dating app, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, where
Interesting.
everybody has credentials to prove for and they kind of recruit each other. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it quickly then becomes okay, now that we are interested, now we need to really see should we work with each other or not. It's before it's only brands say, here is where I want to put money and go, and those ads will be blasted. But in this
Mm-hmm.
case, here is where I want to put money, but then the entity who also wants to show those ads, which is the creator, also need to align with the brand and go. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, so building a lot of features to make sure like all of these are aligned, and these are continuously changing as well. Um, Something like I always keep in mind. It's a challenge, but that's what we gotta do.
It's really interesting comparison. A combination of a dating app and what was the other one you
A
said?
recruiting app.
A recruiting app. Yeah, that's I can imagine, swiping on influencers now.
Yep.
Um, that's really interesting. And of course, there's probably some sort of like intelligent system behind it that's making smart recommendations based on the brand, the
Mhm.
vertical that they're in, their preferences, the products they're promoting.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I'm curious to hear from you. I know we only have a few minutes left, but how do you see artificial intelligence coming into play? I know this is kind of
Uh,
like the hot question to ask
it's
right now.
a huge topic.
Yeah.
First of all, like I mean, if I think about a lot of future advertising, etc., to me, um, it's a lot more. It has to be very, very personalized, and also it will be very immersive, in my opinion. Right?
Hmm.
And now going back to AI, I know there are a lot of tools out there. There are a lot. Anytime I go online, that's all I see. Oh, AI can do this. AI can do this. Humans don't have to do anything. Right? I actually disagree with that. To me, actually, taking one step back, AI is everywhere within advertising for a long time. Maybe we didn't. It's not AI, but it's machine learning, right?
Hmm.
So we use that for a lot to essentially drive efficiency with spend, to optimize performance, or to improve ad relevance. We have really used machine learning so heavily everywhere, right? And now, sure, artificial intelligence, adaptive learning systems like are coming up, but to me, still humans are in charge of marketing. Um, So the way I see AI is, to me, AI is, at least in the foreseeable future, will not replace a human being, but it's rather a assistive technology. So
Mm,
it can create copies, more than creating copies for a lot of these tedious tasks that creators or brands go through. To me, it can rather like tweak a copy, like it can create different variations of a single copy. So AI is really good at that. Give
mm,
input, let it learn, and then give you what humans are probably not really good at doing, right? So to me, I see AI to be pretty much improving a lot of efficiency
mm,
within all these platforms that we're building, um, and also like um, create more assistive, play more like
mhm.
an assistive role to like people and technologies than
Interesting.
completely solely interesting. Maybe down the line, there will be AI that can just do everything. Anything is possible with technology. That's what I believe. But like immediate foreseeable future, I would say it's a great assistive technology to me, because still human intelligence is different in really thinking through and building, especially when it comes to your end goal is to instill trust and invoke emotion. Humans are still good at that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. So for my business, when I write email scripts, right, I'll
Mhm.
A/B test, right, over the course of a month, and then I'll make changes and optimize based on whichever sequence performed the best,
Mhm.
right? And I think that AI has been a really good creative aid for me in
Mhm.
script writing, right? I
Mhm.
can kind of tell it like what worked and what didn't, and
Yes.
these are the formats that worked, or this is the content that worked, or and it can mix and match and kind of I don't want to say it's going to write the scripts for me because it really doesn't do a great job. In fact, it tends to over embellish and
Yes.
exaggerate a bit and sometimes even make things up. But it is really a great tool for inspiration.
Mhm.
Um, and I can see a point at which, I kind of feed it, whether it be templates or just examples of my past work,
Mhm.
and train it on that. And it's able to iterate for me, right? So that can continually optimize the scripts that I'm using for email outreach, with my
Mhm.
clients. And not only would it be a huge time saver for me, but it may actually improve, like long term, may
Yes.
improve the quality of the output,
Yes.
which I think is interesting. And I think for the creators, that are using Curastory and just creators across the board, AI has become such a powerful asset,
Yes.
for that reason. And I,
Mhm.
I, I tend to agree. I think it's more of a creative aid than a substitute, and it
Mhm.
probably will be for a while.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still see in China they're using AI avatar
Mhm.
influencers for live shopping now.
Yep.
And they're running around the clock, selling products, answering questions from people in the comments.
They are AI-based avatars are like virtual influencers are on the rise, surprisingly like popular, and
Mhm,
especially with the younger audience, 18 to 30, I would say. Um, the numbers are scary good, uh,
mm,
like how much they are willing to trust or buy a product that's sold by one of these. But if I do click into it, most of that also has to do with the brand that these influencers are sponsoring. These are all named brands. No small brand is taking that kind of risk yet. So a
mhm,
lot of larger brands like are essentially coming into it. So there's already that kind of trust factor that's there. Um, so to me, like AI-based influencers are great for brands because they have a lot more control over the narrative and how the output, etc. Uh, but which they don't have today. But my question, I'm yet to see. I'm paying very close attention to this. My question is, the whole point of working with the creator is that the creator's audience actually like the creator. They find them relatable, personable. I
mhm,
don't know if I look at what's that. There's a sausage that is an
mhm,
influencer. I forgot the name, and they're like, oh, Michaela is actually a great influencer. If I see. I don't know what I can relate to a virtual influencer, except that it's pretty cool. As a technology geek, like I love tech, so I really enjoy it. So it'll be good to see how that will progress and if is it sustainable long term. Or I can actually see collaborations between real and virtual influencers together to produce
Mhm.
more exciting content out there.
Yeah, I remember there was one like pretty early on, like NZ or ZK Mecca was a rapper
Yep.
who got signed to a major label
Hmm.
and did a collaboration with or a couple collaborations with
Yep.
some major rap artists.
Hmm.
That said something controversial shortly after, got canceled and dropped from the label. But I think it's interesting because like behind every one of these virtual influencers, there's a team of creatives
Yes,
making decisions, and that's what people
exactly.
don't see.
Yes.
And I think for a large part of the consumers, they don't realize that, right?
Hmm.
All they see is this product, and it's funny because I mean, for some of the larger like human influencers, there's often a large team of creatives behind them, right?
Yes.
And people also don't realize that like it's not all one person. They're the face of the brand, and they're running a business. But I don't think that these whatever you want to call them, avatar AI avatar influencers are going to be functioning autonomously for a while.
Yeah.
um, so I mean, it's definitely an interesting problem, I think, for the
Hmm.
future to solve.
Yes.
Um, and as far as like how do we balance AI generated content with human generated content?
Hmm.
Who reaps the benefits of these influencers, AI influencers, right? When
Hmm.
they're running free and producing their own content and landing brand partnerships through a automated platform that Jaya and his team at Curastory create. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting question, and
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see kind of where the future leads us, and or where we lead the future, I should say.
Where will lead the future? I'll be honest. Like one area which I really want to see accelerated growth and adoption is blockchain and
Hmm.
Web3 in digital advertising. There are a ton of problems in the existing world. Centralized systems who store data, which is a huge problem for a lot of people. Fraud, ad fraud is huge. Too many middlemen in ad tech today. Um, I want to say like identity, transparency, so many issues everyone talks about in every ad tech conference. No clear solution out there. To me, I believe blockchain has the power to solve some of these and put the control back into the actual users where they have the control, which is what all the regulations are driving for, versus brands really doing it. So just want to
Hmm.
say that that is something that I'm closely monitoring and something I really want to see more adoption mainstream.
I 100% agree. I'm curious, I guess last question before we're at time, but I
Mhm.
just saw this morning that Reddit is killing their blockchain based community points.
Oh, we
Um,
experimented. I wasn't there when that started.
yeah, no, and I'm just curious, I haven't actually read the article yet, but
Mhm.
I wonder, like there was a problem, right? And I feel like with Web3, it's often, the same problem. It's just like friction.
Yep.
There's just too much friction.
Yeah,
Um,
it is like
yeah.
if I talk to an average person, I say blockchain, the first thing that they'll say is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Hmm.
And they're like, no, we don't trust it. Blockchain's crap. We don't want to work with it. So that's basically how it goes. And there's a huge trust issue. There's stigma around blockchain and Web3. So to me, like solving that perception problem and making it easy. Like I tried to sign up for a few things just to try it out. Everything needs a wallet. And to get that wallet, like it's so scary. It's so technical. It's not easy for an average person to just go do anything. So until that problem is resolved and change the perception, like we will have hard time like for the massive growth and adoption of this to make it like more mainstream day-to-day usage. But I'm hoping that will happen soon. Come on, like it's a challenge that has been solved in many different areas, so we can do that. So but I'm really waiting for that to get more mainstream adoption.
I am too. I think Asia's leading us at the moment on that by quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jaya. It's been
All right.
great. I really appreciate you taking the time with me today, and thank you to everybody who's watching. I actually have not been very good at watching the chat, but I'll find out after and reply to comments if there are comments waiting. But yeah, once again, Jaya, I think this has been very insightful. I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation offline, maybe even having you on again in the future.
That's good. Happy to. Thanks for having me here.
All right. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Take care.
Bye.